Welcome back, YouTube. This is Shrine King, and as promised, this is going to be a video in regards to like a Scouting 101 in World of Tanks tutorial. So, to get started, there is a lot of information in regards to scouting. It's actually probably one of the hardest things to do in the game, just because of the model, and it's kind of one of those things that you actually have to like believe in without even being able to see it most of the time. And in some cases, you'll get to a point where you'll actually have indicators of like when spotted, things like that, that kind of helps you know, hey, yes, you are spotted. But to get started, there are two major concepts when it comes to how scouting really works and the mechanics there are. So there's the view distance mechanic, and then there's camouflage mechanics. So we'll start with view because it's actually one of the harder parts to work around. So every tank's view range has got a certain set amount. When you upgrade a turret, typically that view range is increased, and that is your ability to see so far on the map, but does not necessarily mean that you'll automatically spot anything within that area. That's where camo comes in. So when you have a certain view range, there are things in the game that will help boost it. There are crew skills that can boost it. If you have a crew that's not at 100%, your view range is automatically lessened. So just bear that in mind as well. So what you would really want is, obviously as a scout, you do want 100% crew. The reason being is that way you have the full view distance. Then on top of that, there's stuff like coded optics and the telescope. The telescope is a piece of equipment that you can actually take off of a tank and move it onto another tank, while the coded optics is not. Coded optics is required gold to remove it and then put it back onto another tank. So what the difference there is coded optics automatically boosts your view range all the time, whereas the periscope or telescope will actually boost it significantly, but it's only when you're sitting still, and much like a camo net. So the way this all works together is you have to have line of sight on the target to even have a chance to spot it. The other part that's also not necessarily well described or explained or understood for most people is that you have, not that you have to, but depending on certain locations on the tank, the more locations that you're able to see, the better chance you are to spot them. What this means is if a tank is like front facing you and all you can really see is the front, and that's one point of perspective, so you won't actually spot them as well as if they were maybe turned sideways, and you would actually get like a front, side, or like basically front, mid, and back line of sight. So that kind of stuff I'll try to explain in some, or at least show references in that in the videos. I am going to show some videos that's like introduction of like how to best go about playing as a scout, and how it really works out. So getting into the next mechanic though, oh, by the way, so in line of sight, that means if you're hiding behind a rock, you can't see and they can't see you. They would have to go around the rock, or someone from another position would have to spot you. Now, when we get into camo is a strange one because the numbers don't necessarily relate in a way that's easy to describe. So the best I can really say is probably every 2 camo rating that you have is the equivalent of about 5 meters of view. So every block is like 50 meters, and you have a meter range or view range. So for example, if you have 350 meter view range, but then you have, let's say, 20 camo rating, you're actually looking at about 50 meter camo rate. So that means basically someone has to get within 300 meters to be able to spot you, kind of stuff. And that's the best I can really describe. And again, don't quote me on those numbers. That's about my best guess just from what I've been seeing in the game with my overall time expenditure in playing. Now, While you have a base camo rating to your tank, there is also other stuff that you can get, such as like a camo net, which will boost it. You can even put exterior paint, that'll also give you like 4% boost to your camo rating. Then the other part in the game is that you got to bear in mind the mechanics of trees, bushes, so on and so forth. All of those things can give you a camo rating. Now, depending on the size of the bush, said tree or whatever, that also depicts how much camo rating you'll get, which I will get into further discussion here in a little bit to help explain how those bushes really work and how they stack off. But just bear in mind that like when you're trying to spot someone, it's not necessarily just them. If they have if they're in bushes and they have a camo net and all that kind of stuff, those things can also take in effect as well. So here's a case where I'm going to show as a scout, so I'm tier 5. The reason why I aimed at tier 5 is because really at 4 you're kind of like introduction to scouting. At tier 5 you're really actually like a real scout by that time. So one thing I want to point out is if you look at the minimap, you'll see that there's a green line, a white line, and a yellow line. The green line means my view range currently. The white line means maximum view distance. So that never changes. What that will tell me is if I'm viewing the maximum or not, and the yellow range is actually my radio. So that means how far I can communicate things that I find. So here you'll see I'm just moving up and I'm trying to go into an open area, and you'll see here I just went into a bush and I made sure that there's a couple bushes around, and I sat still. So now my telescope and my camo netting are in place, and you'll see right here I automatically spotted somebody that was trying to rush up. So like for them, they don't have any camo, like they don't have bushes or anything like that. For them, a medium moving will have a lower camo rating anyway. Now here, one thing I want to explain is you'll notice I am not firing. If you fire, you will lose camo around you, and your camo rating will drop. So what this means is not only does your camo rating automatically drop the moment you fire, but all bushes, trees, and things like that giving you an extra boost to camo, they will be negated for a certain amount of time when you fire. So that means you would not get the benefits of those bushes or trees. So in my case, if I fire, I would not have the benefit of the camo from where I'm at right now. That said, if you do fire, the camo rating loss that you receive, besides the overall loss immediately from the bushes and that, you also will lose depending on the caliber of your gun. So the smaller the gun, the less camo rating lost when fired, but the larger the gun is much more significant. And this is one of the reasons why like heavy tanks, they are almost always the easiest to spot, because one, they already have a very low camo rating, and if they fire, I almost guarantee they either have 0 or negative camo rating, making it that much easier to see them. So in this event, like all the targets that I'm seeing, you can see they're actually probably about 2 to 3 grids away. That means it's about 150 meters. So what does this mean? It means I can actually see up to probably, what is that, about 425 meters. But I didn't see them until they were about 150 to 200 meters away. The reason being is how the camo system works along with view distance. So where, yes, they're well within my range. So like I see this one guy right there, he's like 300 meters. But he actually has a good camo, he's a light. So that tells you right there, just based on all of that, right there, I needed to get him within about 100 meters before I can actually spot him because of his overall camo rating. Whereas like if it was a heavy and he walked into my view distance, chances are I would see him unless there's a lot of trees. So, and that's the other thing to bear in mind. So like this Cromwell, I'm probably not really the one spotting the Cromwell. And in this match, I'm actually here with a buddy, kind of like working with him to scout and kind of teach him scouting, but also he had a mission, and the mission is to actually cap the flag in a fight. So kind of spotted everything, team destroyed almost the entire opponent's force, and you'll see that I have 1265 spotted. Now while I'm on that topic of how much spotting I've done, if you noticed during it, you might have seen where damage would have shown like maybe 200 on a target, but I only got like 100. What that means is I am not the only one who is actually spotting the target, so it actually splits spotting now. It used to be that you had to have spotting on being the only person spotting a target to even get credit, and now they've decided instead they're going to just split it. So here you'll see I'm just asking, or I'm telling the team, hey, we actually need to cap for a mission. And they are mentioning like they don't want to cap, but I, told them, hey, it's for a mission. Please don't be mean. So bear that in mind if you do have missions like that and that is your goal. Try to communicate it. Let the team know so that they understand why you're doing it. People are not necessarily always nice. Sometimes they'll actually shoot you just because they don't want to. But in our case, in this match, we did manage to do it. So this is like the last match. You'll see the case of like where scouting went right. I went in, I kind of picked out where I wanted to go. I'm always trying to aim at like certain open areas. So like here, usually when you load into a map, you kind of want to figure out where where you're gonna go. Where does the opponent normally go? How to best scout. Typically, to me, if you can get into open maps and you can get somewhere kind of like in the middle, that's actually your best bet because you'll actually scout most of the map. So in this case, I'm actually gonna go. There's like a little, I'm trying to think of how to describe it, but there's like a little crossway right down the middle. It's kind of like a swampy land. So you'll see here, me and my buddy, we were going the same way, decided to split because, again, if we're both spotting, we share it, and it's not necessarily as good anyway. So that's another thing to bear in mind too. If you are just trying to scout, oh, actually, so that's right. He took the spot I normally would have taken. So you'll see like the M7 there is actually in the middle. So he should just be sitting still, and the idea is that he should be able to spot anyone trying to come up through the middle. He should also be able to spot anyone potentially coming through on the far south side once they reach over. So like right there you'll see that leopard popped. It's actually probably because he spotted them. So here I am, I'm just sitting here watching. And this is mostly what scouting is, to be honest. There's active scouting and passive scouting. Active scouting is when you're constantly moving around, trying to just see if you can find people. And passive scouting is when you actually sit still, typically in some kind of cover, to have the best opportunity to spot people. And what I mean by the best opportunity is it's the aspect of in passive is that you're kind of waiting. So one thing you got to be aware of as a scout is like I'm watching all of this enemy team going down that way, and I know that there should be an enemy team going into the city. So I'm curious as where the enemy team is here, if they even had anyone over here. So I'm actually coming up to see if I can find anybody. And this way my team would have things to shoot at because I see that we have tank destroyers. Doesn't look like we really have a lot of artillery, but we have some tank destroyers down there. And they're probably all focused or aiming towards the south, so this is actually probably a bad call on my end. Had I paid attention a little more, I would probably thought about this a little better and realized, no, I really shouldn't have done this. But here you'll see, okay, I did find a KV-1S and an M7. Now, this is not really a good situation because one, I found this guy, no one's firing on it, which means I'm already failing as a scout. So here I am, I was like, okay, it looked like he was coming after me. I'm going to try to maneuver around him. And you'll see here, I did maneuver around him. I was doing fine, but this is why it's bad to do this. So you'll see here, he actually has backup. I got shot by the backup. I'm trying to get away, and he has a gun that can probably insta-kill me. And E25 hit me, managed to knock out my engine, or knock my engine. So I slow down, and then boom, game over for me. So, not every scenario is always going to go in your favor, nor is every decision always the smartest decision. So just do what you can. I mean, it's just the way it overall goes. But it gives you a good example of like what was active scouting. So like what I was doing there was more active scouting. I was moving up and trying to find people. So here's another map. Again, me and my buddy are in the same in the match together, so we are going to kind of split. to try and um, see if we can spot more of the team. Now, on this map, typically the scouts like to try to like rush to the center, and then they'll more or less do a lot of active scouting. So when they're running around, they actually like to just kind of like crest over. So you'll see here, I'm actually going to start the match active scouting. So you'll see both of us are. We actually spotted 3 different targets, and you'll see we're still roaming, right? So this is another idea to keep in mind. You don't actually have to focus on one or the other. You can do both, and it's always readily timed to swap around. So it's more about just making your judgment calls as a scout. So you'll see here I am, kind of making sure to just pay attention at driving, trying to watch these other scouts, and then I realized, there's too many of us. It doesn't require 3 scouts to constantly circle around trying to avoid each other to really keep things spotted. Right? It only takes 1 to honestly do it. So in this event, I'm like, all right, well, we kind of spotted them. I don't see anyone else coming up. There's not really a lot of a point for us to just constantly sit there. So I go and I hide in a bush, and my buddy actually goes a little farther to the left side there, or west side of the map, and he's also hiding in a bush. And you'll see that we have the AMX 12T actually a little to my right there. I'm actually kind of looking in his direction now. And he is sitting up there. So we technically have this whole thing spotted out. So you'll see these guys came down. And this is typically, as a scout, a bad call. Had there been more guns, that T-37 would have died right away. But sadly, so my buddy actually got spotted, and I don't think the T-37 actually spotted him, but this 5916 is the one that did spot him. And I made a judgment call here that, oh crap, he was going to die, I was going to try to help him, but I made it a little too late, realized, yeah, that was too late. Decided we still needed to finish it because we can't really let him just continue to roam through us. But because of the timing, because he was in the dip, I know he didn't see me. So because, again, like I said, to spot you have to have line of sight. So because he can't see me and he has no line of sight to me, I knew I was okay to just, okay, let's get back into a bush. So you'll see here, I'm sitting in a bush. I see these guys are kind of pushing up. So I decide, you know what, let me see if I can't support by making some shots. So here's a case where, okay, I can make a shot. Now again, like I said, I'm going to lose camo for doing this. The question is, did I lose enough camo for them to spot me? Because I know for a fact that guy had line of sight. So here I'm like, alright, well, let me go ahead and maneuver. And we're going to go ahead and try to get out. And let's see, go up. So that way I spot a little bit. Now chances are, right there, I most likely got spotted. That KV-1S was way too close for me not to be spotted. And that was because I came up in the line of sight. I didn't have any camo or anything blocking or giving me extra camo like bushes. So you see right there, I did take a hit. But again, like you'll notice here, I'm getting out of range. So like here I am paying attention to my green circle. I see the white circle, and I'm like, even maximum view distance, I'm outside of it. They can't see me, even if they wanted to. So waiting, and here I can see the KV-1S is now in my maximum view distance. He's actually now in my view, and I make a decision not to fire on him yet. Now, again, like I said, when you fire, you'll lose camo rating and anything right near you. Now, if you see these bushes in front of me here, like you can see that they're visible even when I'm zoomed in. That is a way to tell if you are within the distance that you would lose the camo rating. If they are see-through and you can see through them, if you fire, you will lose all of the camo around you. Now in this case, I'm not losing camo from that bush. I'm only losing camo from the bushes I'm in. And that bush is not necessarily one bush. If you look, it's a long line of bushes. So all those bushes and trees were giving me camo rating. Now that I've fired my gun and everything like that, I didn't see anyone else push up. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and get into this other bush so now that I can see. So bear that in mind. Like those bushes, he was also getting camo rating off of it because that was me trying to view him through it. Whereas now that I'm in these bushes or close to these bushes, and I can, like if I scroll in or use like the shift key to zoom in, I will actually see through them. This tells me that like if I fire, I would lose the camo rating. Now, part of being a scout is actually really having some kahunas. So like here, I don't know if they're gonna spot me, but I do know that T-34M is coming right at me, and if he gets close enough, he will spot me. So I'm actually hitting my target key, saying please shoot this guy. And once done with him, then I target the other one. So you'll see it says requesting. I'm not sure which key it is by default. I know mine currently is T, uh, and I think it's just for target. It is definitely a great thing to do if you know particular targets you want them to focus on. Uh, while not everyone will fire on your target, just hitting T and targeting it and having it blink on the map and everything like that will draw attention. So hopefully people will fire at it. I would make sure to try to prioritize targets. So if you know of a particular target that's a big threat, go ahead and target that one, right? Even if you see people firing at it, even if you see people firing at other things, go ahead and hit T on it anyway. Try to get them to target the ones that are very dangerous. Now here's another match as a scout. Speaking of, so like one thing you'll also notice is I have a different, let's see, if you see like my 4, 5, and 6 slot, I have the, what is it, engineering repair kit, which is the 4th, so that way I can repair any module or component that gets broken on my vehicle. Then you'll see I have a med kit, and so I can heal any of my crew members that get hurt. And then you'll see I have like a governor thing, which it actually boosts my speed by like 5 or 10%. I typically use that so that I can get to places faster. And like I said, because if you're trying to do passive scouting, you want to get there faster. One thing to note for lights, as scouts, you moving does not drop your camo rating. So all other vehicles in the game, if they move, they have a separate camo rating for when they're moving. Whereas lights, when they're moving, they maintain the same camo rating. Now, by the way, so you guys may see that there's a victory, all enemy vehicles destroyed at the top. So when I was recording this, the in-game World of Tanks video recording tool or whatever, I guess, freaked out, and it decided that the end of the match victory was just going to stay there the whole time. So I apologize for that, but I have not won this match. It does give away the result. But yeah, no, I didn't win this. So here's a case where, honestly, one of the key things I can tell you as a scout is patience. Patience is definitely really key. It's a virtue, and it helps a lot when you're actually being a scout. When you're doing passive scouting, just because you don't see a target doesn't mean that targets are not there. As I said, in the one match that didn't go my way, I moved up to see if anyone was there because I was kind of hoping there wasn't anyone. Like maybe they all split apart and gave me an opportunity to go right for their artillery, and it turned out, and they were still there, and that didn't go very well. So here's the case. I'm watching the map, and I see, okay, they have some guys to the east side. See quite a few guys to the west side. Now we get a spot here. It's actually my buddy is getting engaged by an M4 improvised. I'm watching because here, if I move and there are people, I will probably be spotted. And right now, people are going to be concentrating on the fight that he's in. And you'll see there, he actually tried running away, which was a good idea. And then another M4 improvised was there and rammed him and killed him. Just to give a heads up, if you are in a light, because you're a light, ramming mechanics are not in your favor. So if you go to ram a vehicle, you will most likely take a lot of damage, if not kill yourself in one shot. So for example, ramming a heavy will most likely kill you. Ramming a medium, especially if it's a heavier medium, will most likely kill you. Even tank destroyers, some of them are very heavy, they will do the same. The other ones, you might do some damage to them, but chances are you're going to take more damage, which means you just gave them free damage out of it. Let's see. So in this case, so I've sat, I watched, I'm like, well, it's looking kind of rough, but My team seems to maybe kind of handled that west flank a little bit. It does look like, you know, their team seems to be split. So at this point, I'm like, well, doing the same judgment call, right? Like, maybe I can get up through here and possibly find their artillery, and flank their team, and hopefully be able to get some good experience out of this, because right now it's like, yeah, I have no damage, no spotting, nothing. So here I am. Now I see that there's an AFK guy and there's the SPG. Now I see the SPG is actually aiming and moving, so I'm like, well, he's not AFK. Let me go ahead and take him out. Now as a scout, right, so because the other guy is AFK, I can technically use that to my advantage. My team might actually fire upon him. And it turns out, yes, they did. So while I'm sitting there trying to take care of these non-AFK artillery units, my teammates actually kill the tank destroyer that was just sitting there AFK. So, good job, got this scouting experience. Now here you'll see, found another artillery. Now, by the way, if you right-click while aiming at a target, it will auto-lock the target, and this allows you to maneuver around. It is a good trick to use on lights. But bear in mind, it centers on the target, which means heavier armored targets. Oh, here's some interesting stuff. So here, a Hellcat who has more than enough firepower and penetration just bounced on me. I dodge a shot here from the AMX, and I'm getting spotting damage because people are shooting. Now here, you'll see I'm bobbing and weaving. The reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to make it hard for the Hellcat to shoot me, because every time he has to move, it's going to bloom his aiming. And I got really lucky, so like while I turned like last second, he actually hit my tracks, which is one of the things you could do. Now you'll see here I came down, I did take a hit this time. He was able to get me that time, but I immediately dropped down, and then you'll see I'm kind of weaving in between, making it to where for him to get line of sight on me is pretty hard. So he wasn't able to actually finish me off, so I actually get away. Now it turns out I had company come over, so I actually stop here and walk away. But my team did win. I was able to make a good turnaround, so you'll see I have 750 damage with 762 assistance. And that's where, like I said, you got passive and you got active. So I went in active, and it's not necessarily a bad thing in certain cases to actually fight. Just bear in mind, as a light, a lot of your guns are pretty weak. They won't have a lot of penetration or high alpha damage. And alpha damage is just the number of damage it can do. So I actually, yeah, so you see I'm coming back, and I finally get back to the game, and it's like, oh well, the match is actually over. So now, so again, everything I've showed you, everything I've given you is great tips to help explain, and hopefully, I'm really hoping it will help you understand the mechanics to the game. Now, bear in mind, one of the things I didn't really talk about is for trees, right? So some trees, they're standing. You can knock down trees, and the bush of the tree will count as camo for you. So for example, in the event you find a bunch of trees, you can knock them all down and then have them as all camo there. But bear in mind, like specifically for like artillery or even players, if they're looking in the distance, whether they can see you or not, they'll see the trees get knocked down. It's not necessarily fair when you consider like view distance stuff, but the way I can look at it is just game mechanics. So in game mechanics, that's kind of what you run into. So here I'm actually playing a tier 6. This is a French light, and you'll see it is actually an auto loader. It has 4 rounds in the clip, and you'll see I'm doing the same thing, right? So I'm just moving up, grab a bush, and just hang tight. And you'll see right there, I actually saw a tree fall out in the distance. So I'm already know that some of them are out there, that they made it out that way, that they're pushing there. Now here I see, oh, hey, there's a Sherman. Interesting. I want to punish him for coming this far. So I actually have the option of coming in here, and I'm like, well, because I have 4 rounds, I actually have enough to really cause him some pain. Although I got some support there, so not a big deal. And you'll see here, now I'm active scouting. So I did scout the T-29, and much like I said, a heavy as long as they're in that view range, you got them. So like you'll see, he wasn't like just in the green circle for me, so I was able to spot him. And now I'm kind of using that marker to note, hey, I don't want to be in his view range. So I'm kind of like maneuvering outside of it, and here you'll see, okay, I'm gonna kind of come up, and I'm making sure to line up where there's bushes and trees. So even when I'm coming up on him, those bushes and trees were giving me camo. Now he's well within my view range. Because again, I sat still and I got the telescope, and so bam, right there, you said, like, I now have it where it extended, and then I can actually see him, and now I'm just keeping him lit. Like, and that's one thing to note if you're a scout. Now here you'll see I only got 27 spotting. What that means is I wasn't the only one who had eyes on him, and here I just spotted a challenger. Now bear in mind, they can probably blink in and out, depending on what they're doing. In the event that they fired, they would lose all their camo rating, plus get some negative camo rating. Well, they would lose any camo from foliage, but then they would also get a drop in their camo rating from firing. So every time they do that, I have a better chance of seeing them and keeping them lit. As a scout, lighting a target, and the target like, you gotta bear in mind, if you light a target and you get out of view range, that target's gonna go out of view within like 4 or 5 seconds. If that happens, right, typically what will happen there is artillery would aim at the target, but as soon as they lose sight of it, they probably won't pull the trigger. And with good cause too, because one, they don't know if they moved. Two, for some reason with the game, if you have a target that you can aim on, it seems to be a little more accurate, whereas if you're just aiming randomly, it seems very random. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah, so here I'm just, again, just kind of being patient and trying to watch what's going on. And then here I saw, oh, hey, you know what? IKV showed up. I take a shot. Now here, okay, so bear in mind, that means, hey, I would actually be exposed. For him, he's actually rolling back, so when I took the shot, he actually did not have a viewport to be looking at me, so he shouldn't be able to spot me from there. But I decided, hey, you know what? It's time to go a little bit on the aggressive. I'm not seeming to spot the guys I was spotting before, so chances are they're kind of hiding. And I'm like, and these guys are showing up just in time, so he doesn't really see this. Now here, this almost went really bad. So like, he's got a big derp gun. If had he been able to shoot me, it would have hurt. But you'll see that shot actually went right in the water, which I love the graphical effects, because you can actually see the ripple of the water from where the shell hit. So here I'm reloading, and now I'm like, all right, well, let me head on in here, see if we can spot any artillery or anything. Don't see anything, and then boom, you can see I see tree drop. So I'm like, okay, there might be an enemy there. Let me get a line of sight on it. All right, and then let's go ahead and extend, and I got nothing. I'm like, well, okay, I should have spotted something had they been there, because it's not that far away. So I'm like, well, okay, maybe not. So I move up a little bit, looking farther out, and then bam, I see another tree fall and another tree fall. Now, hindsight's 20/20. During the time, I was like, man, they might have quite a few people out here, and I'm not seeming to spot them. The truth is, it was probably artillery. And the first tree I saw was actually probably him running away. Had I moved up quicker, I actually probably would have spotted him, and that would have probably gotten him killed. But sometimes better safe than sorry, so I didn't run out there, because had I done that, I probably would have run into this T-29, and that wouldn't have gone very well for me. So here I'm like, well, I'm not seeing anyone, so I don't think there's anyone really protecting here. Let me go ahead and wrap around, because that T-29 is probably going to push, especially since he killed the other T-29. And you'll see, alright, well, they're actually capping. So I decide I'm not going to go for the T-29. They're actually capping. Let me go this way. And I'm like, oh, wait, there's a KV-1. And you'll see, as I said, lights don't necessarily have all the best shells. Now, hindsight's 20/20 again. Had I kept moving, I probably would not have taken a hit from him. And then if you saw that, my friendly Hellcat almost shot me. It was really close, but he did get that KV-1, which actually worked out in my benefit, so good on him. Thank you so much for shooting that guy. But here it's like, well, and again, like now, so I'm getting shot at. I see that, hey, we got this, but we really got to get to that cap because they are capturing it. And they got 40 seconds. Now, in a light, 40 seconds is not really that short of a time. It's pretty long because we can get around, you know? So here, okay, take another hit, but I go ahead and kill him. Now, I don't want to reload because, one, I know they're capping. If I reload, it takes like 20-something seconds, which would basically mean I'd have to wait till the very end there. So here's one of them. I actually hit him. Missed. And clear it. So I actually got to clear the flag. It's like, yeah, good job. I stopped them from doing it. Now, had I been looking at the map, I should have probably gone west. But this guy's pinging like crazy on these two guys, so I thought they were trying to ask me to go east. And of course, coming east, I'm like, well, shit. Now I see this guy, Churchill 1, and bam! I get nailed by the KV-1. Now you'll notice I never saw him, but that's because he wasn't in, like, I had no line of sight to him. So again, I'm hoping this stuff really helps you in the way of camouflage, along with how to spot and how to best scout. And actually, I hope to see you guys in games and maybe get some better outputs of this. So please let me know what you think. Leave a like, subscribe. Thank you very much.